Hey guys, so we're back. All right, so again, thank you so much for being here this far, and if you had to subscribe and do your thing down there, I appreciate it, but not really, not really a priority. I'm just glad that I'm helping you, basically. But if you have to, go ahead. I think it'll benefit you because that way you'll get notifications when I go, when I load and one of these things, one of these videos up. But other than that, it's up to you. All right, so let's get to this. So what we're going to talk about this in this video is how to use data in a state. Okay, so so this is the part that's gonna get confusing, okay, for especially for beginners. Okay, so what is state and why do we even need it? Okay, so technically you can have anything, or there's a lot of things that you can't have hard coded onto the screen, that you have to be able to use it as a piece of data that is coming into you, either coming from an API or from a JSON file or some kind of structure that is going to XML, for example, that is going to give you a piece of data for you to map through it and things like that. Okay, so in order to do this, in order to utilize the state, React uses a series of hooks. Okay, and these hooks allow you to use this data through a state and able to modify it and add things to it or remove things from it and things like that. You need to remember that it's going to work a little bit different than if you added as a regular array, for example, where you can just push things to it and things like that. State is unmutable, so that means you can't basically change it itself. You have to basically pull it back and change it and then place it back in, okay, as a bigger state, I guess, with more items in it. So that part is going to be a little confusing, and eventually it'll come together once we start dealing with more state management technology here, such as Redux, for example. But for right now, we're just going to use it as a JSON, and you'll pick it up from there, see basically how it is. Okay, why it makes it easier to use that than to hard code a bunch of stuff. All right, so we're going to basically use our home page right here to display a bunch of tasks. Okay, a bunch of to-dos or something like that. So so from the home page here, where we were, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in right there in the home page, and we're going to create a new file, and this one is going to be for your tasks JS. Okay, and as always, I like to use JavaScript React because it's easier to work with. RFCE, I'm gonna bring in my task component structure there. Okay, all right, so what are we gonna do from here is basically we're going to make use of our our block of data. I guess I'm gonna want to call it a data object. All right, and that's going to be const task, and that's going to then I'm going to use a copy. I'm going to copy and paste it from here, so it's a little easier for me to move along. But please take your time and pause the video, look through this, and then just copy paste it, whatever, not copy paste it, but just go over it and then write it. All right, so assuming that you had enough time. So now we're going to go ahead and show these things here. So as everything that I do, every time I create a component, I like to test it first. So I am going to create here something. I'm going to put something in there. Let's just call it tasks. Come on, tasks. Okay, I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to go to where I will be placing it, which is here where the something is. I don't need this something anymore, and I'm going to make use of my tasks in here. So I'm going to import tasks, which is that one, and I'm going to input it in here, and then I should be able to see their tasks, so I know that it's working. Okay, always do this. Always, before you start adding a bunch of code to your page. We don't need this page title anymore, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Before you start adding a bunch of code to this page right here, do yourself a favor and make sure that you have some random name there. Import it where you're going to show it, and then show something like that, like just some whatever. Make sure that that is showing. That way you know that your component is rendering, and you can fix whatever problem you may have before you start adding a bunch of code here and then realize that it didn't work for some reason. Trust me, I learned this the hard way. All right, so what we're gonna do here is basically display in this component here, display a bunch of tasks. So if you were going to do this in let's just show you actually the hard way. So we're gonna go here to a list. Let's look up for list group. Okay, so this is the list group. We're gonna go and find one that has a little bit more than just, okay, so this right here, that's probably good. All right, so yeah, so we do this one. So we'll do this one here, and we're gonna copy this here, right? And I'm going to go here and paste it in there, and make sure that I do my due diligence to have everything formatted. All right, and I'm gonna click that. Actually, I don't need this div anymore, so I am going to fragment it instead. But one thing I don't want to do is I don't want it to be numerated, as you saw with it. OL is going to add 1, 2, 3, whatever. I'm actually gonna make this an on list, a regular, unnumbered or whatever. I'm gonna get rid of this list group number, whatever, and I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna make sure that it shows. Okay, good. So it's working, right? So we're going to replace this right here with a particular task and all that. So one thing that I want to do actually before I get any further, where is it? Okay, so this spam badge, whatever. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and actually delete that for now, because we're not gonna use that. But what we're going to do is we're going to put, eventually in the next lessons, we're going to put an icon in there for deleting each of these tasks. Okay, so like a delete icon or something like that. And you can make use of any library you want, but React has its own library called React Icons, I think. So we'll probably use that one. All right, so what I want to do here is I want to put my first task, which is doctor's appointment, right? So I want to, or anything, like just anything. I want to put task 1, and then I'm gonna put here some description, and then I want to put here task 2, and then here something else, and then here task 3, and then I'm gonna say here something else, and you see how it's starting to work. Now imagine that you are building something and they tell you that you have to correct some stuff, or that you have to add more stuff, or whatever, to this task right here. This could take you forever, because it could be, see how repetitive this is becoming. This right here is identical to this, and identical to this one. They're all identical, they're all the exact same thing. They're repeating themselves. The only thing that's changing is the props themselves inside them. So the name of the task and the description and things like that. So these are all things that could be changed. Okay, and what was called this, like for some people this is called a repeater. Okay, it's because that's what basically it will be doing. We will be making use of only one of them, so we can delete this. We will be making use of only one of them, but we will be repeating it. We will be repeating it a bunch of times, for as many tasks that we get in here. Okay, This is important to know because at some point you're going to be working with an API, and an API is basically nothing but just this right here that you're going to get back. But the API could be anything from 1, 2, 3 objects to thousands, even millions. Like if you work for YouTube, how many YouTube videos are out there? The API for YouTube is intense, it's huge, it's millions of videos. So you don't want to have to write a million LIs, lists, items yourself. You'll go crazy. So it's better if you put a repeater and then have it programmatically map through your API called like YouTube API or whatever, right? Which in this case is task, and then give you back as many LIs as there are items in your API or JSON file in this case. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, if you notice, this is an array. So because you have an array, you have action, or you have you have you have array methods available to you that you can use. Remember, this is React, but it's essentially JavaScript. Okay, it's not JavaScript. Is not. I mean, React is nothing but synthetic sugar on top of JavaScript. You're still using JavaScript. So because we have access to that, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make use of that. So which part, where do we do it? Do we do it up here, like at the top here, or do we do it in here? Well, it depends on what you want to repeat. If you put it here and you enclose it, let's just do an enclosure here of code. If we do it out here, then you're going to repeating the UL. So that means you're going to have a UL. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you repeat only the LI. So to repeat it, what you're going to do is that you're going to use it in here, and this is where it is going to go. You're going to repeat the actual list item only. Okay. So another thing that you need to that you need to understand too, or that you need to keep reminded is this right here. How do you know when to add these squiggly brackets or when to just add HTML or whatever? So when you want to display something on the screen, a regular display of things, you're going to use a regular HTML tag. But anytime you need to do something programmatic, like when you need to add program or some intelligence or some logic to this LI or whatever, you need to use the squiggly brackets, and these squiggly brackets are going to make sure that it tells React as, hey, I am going to use some kind of JavaScript here, and to conditionally do things to something that is going to use logic. Okay, so this is where we're going to make use of our map function, our map method from arrays, the array map method. So first thing we want to map through is, what do we want to map through? We want to map through the tasks. Okay, so we're gonna bring in right here our tasks object that we want to map through, this one, right? And then we're gonna call the map method. Okay, now the map method is going to take that thing parentheses, and then inside the parentheses it's going to take a arrow function like that. Now inside the map error, inside the function, you're gonna create an object that is what you're going to use to repeat, to make objects with it. So in this case we're gonna call it task item. Let's just call it task item so it doesn't get too confusing, because if I just name it task, it's just gonna be confusing later with the prop. So let's just call it task item. So basically what I want to do now is I'm telling JavaScript or React, map through my task object and create an individual object called task item for everything that you find. Okay, and now is when we get to go ahead and grab this stuff here and put it in there like so, and then we'll go do some cleanup here to make sure that this is the way it should be. Okay, that looks good. Yep, we can bring this one up even. Always nice and clean. All right, here we go. And then now in here we're gonna see what it is that needs to be mapped out. So what is the first thing that we need mapped out? Well, the name for one, right? We're gonna use this task one here as the name. So we're gonna delete this and we're gonna use our, oops, sorry, I hit the wrong thing. copy, paste that, and we're gonna call text. And then in here, in the description, that's where we're going to use basically the same thing. And we're gonna call day. So now when we hit enter, all right, let's see what we got here. We got tasks being mapped. Okay, let's just refresh this and inspect it and see what happened, because it seems like we have an issue. Oh, okay, I see what it is. So we were supposed to not have squiggly brackets, but a parenthesis instead. All right, here we go. So you see, this is it's good that you're finding issues like that every now and then. All right, so the one thing that we need to understand now, that we need to see, you see how everything is coming up now, that is coming in from the task. So that's great, you're getting everything here. So now I don't have to add a bunch of more LIs to my HTML. All I gotta do is just basically add another task here if I want to, and it will automatically repeat it for me. So this one, let's just call it, let's just have a different ID to it, and then we're gonna call it do homework. So that's gonna be my new task, do homework, and it's due, I don't know, the 12th, and reminder true. Okay, and then we're gonna hit enter, and look at that, it shows up automatically. So when you're dealing with APIs, you're gonna have API calls, which is going, one of them is called get, which is basically what we're doing here. We are doing a get call. We're calling from this API. We're gonna call it API for now. But just like I did this right here, and I added manually, there will be another API call request, an API request, which is a put request or post request, which is basically a function where you tell the API, hey, add this to the API, you know, add this other thing or whatever. So instead of manually, you'll get to actually input all the stuff in there for methods of another function or another form or whatever, and it's gonna automatically get here, and it's gonna also automatically get it back and update itself and all that. So that's how basically communications are. Okay, so this is why I wanted to show you this, to explain to you and to show you how it will work without having to manually do it. So when I'm working for a company and they tell me to add something to the API, to the page, I add it to the API. I don't add another piece of HTML to it. I've repeated a bunch of times. I add it to the API, and this right here is what makes that API repeat the HTML for me. So when I look at my elements here, you'll see that essentially it's still adding another LI. You only see one, but it's doing a bunch of LIs, but I'm not manually adding them myself. This is the one that is adding it. Okay, all right, so so we got that so far. Now the one thing that we also need to know now here is that if you look at here it says that each list item needs to have a unique key prop. This is something that you're going to be running through a lot if you don't have a list item defined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a key, and it's got to be a unique piece of item from the API, which in this case is going to be the ID. The ID will always be unique. So I'm going to add, in my key, I'm going to ask task item that ID. And then now when I render, this will eventually go away. Once I re-render, there you go. So now I added here some, oh, okay, so this class names. This is why I'm getting some errors, because it's looking for class name. So make sure that this is correct, and this should go away. Okay, so let's get rid of this tab index here, because this is really annoying me. So I believe that's in the header. So if we go to the header here, and we'll look for this tab index down here. Yep, that's what it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and put tab index on that and refresh. Okay, we're good. Now we're fine. So we can close this header now because I'm not gonna use it. I just wanted to get rid of that. So now this is great. So far so good. However, I only have access to these tasks from this particular page only. So if I was in the about page and I wanted to do some kind of a update to the task themselves, I won't be able to do it from there because I don't have access to the task, because they only exist in here. They are defined only in here inside the home page, because that's where the home page task is being added to. So I would much rather have this task available to me at the page level, not at the component level, but at the page level. So that way when I have something else in here in the page outside of this component to add a task to this component, it will work because the task will be available at that level. If I keep the task down here, it's going to make it a lot harder for me to pass up some kind of instruction to that component so that that component can change the state and then pass it back down to this component. It's just too much. So it's easier if these tasks right here, if these tasks right here existed at the page level in here in the home page. Okay, and then what I can do is I just basically pass it as a function, as a prop. So we're gonna do that. So let's say here we're going to grab this task here, just the array of tasks. Okay, and we're gonna delete it, and we're gonna delete that as well because we're not gonna use it. And then at the home page right here, we're going to make use of our first hook, which is going to be the hook that is going to call these tasks from the it's going to call the task from the state instead. getting messed up here. All right, so what we're going to do here is add make sure that I am in the right place. Let's do it under the function. We're going to bring a function, a new function, const, and then we're going to add an array of functions. An array inside, the function is going to be in the syntax of an array, which is going to call for only two values, which is going to be set and set task. Okay, and then we're going to make use of our useState hook. Okay, I shouldn't have used that. The reason why I did that is because I was using this plugin that gives me automatic stuff. So let's just avoid this. Let's just do it this way. And then inside here, I'm gonna make myself a space, and I'm gonna, there you go, and I'm gonna paste my state in there. Okay, so I'm gonna close it in for now. I'm just gonna, so this is obviously give me a little squiggly bracket because it's not defined, so I have to come over here and import my use of useState from React. Okay, and now it works. Task useState. So now if I want to use basically my task is I'm already creating a piece of state here called task that is going to have these tasks here initialized inside that task piece of state. So now I'm gonna come over here and I'm going to call my tasks, just a property, to be called to be using or to use that piece of state right there. No, sorry. Task usually, no, it's gonna call, yeah, my task is gonna call tasks, right? Or is it? Yeah, task. Yeah, no. What am I saying? My task. This is where I get confused with these names. My task, which is basically a prop that is gonna be passed, is basically making a call to my piece of state. Sorry. it's already here. Okay, so now if I click enter, this is not gonna work because it looks like it's working, but it's not really working because I haven't saved this up here. So if I save that, then now it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work because it doesn't know, this repeater right here doesn't know anything about the task that I just sent up there. So in order for that to work, I have to make this task right here a prop that I can deploy over to that to the parent component that is basically accepting it. So I'm gonna put tasks here, and I'm gonna hit enter, and look, it now comes back. So basically, what did I do here? What I did was I created a prop which is called tasks, which is, this is basically now mapping through that prop, and it's returning me back a bunch of iterations of that prop. In here, I'm catching the prop again, and I am assigning to the prop, or to each prop iteration, this object, this piece of state right here, and that piece of state is being repeated for as many times as it finds itself, and that's how I basically end up with this right here. So now if I wanted to add something on this click button right here to do to these tasks right here, it will work because they are accessible within the same component at the parent level. If I had left it here, then it wouldn't have been able to talk. I would have had to emit an event in order to get in here, and that's another confusion. So we're gonna stop right here, since you already can see how this task is being published through the use of the useState hook. Okay, and eventually we're gonna talk a little bit more about different type of hooks out there. Hooks are very important to use in React, and this is the new way to use React basically. So I'll see you in the next one.